Matviichuk has been a real treasure for Ukraine. And I'll never forget, I met her in 2014 in Washington, D.C., right after the start of this assault, when everyone was really shocked, and she came to Washington with her colleagues to advocate Ukraine in Congress. And immediately when I saw her after 10 minutes of hearing her speak, I said, this woman is going places. She is extraordinary, and it is a great pleasure to introduce her online. We thank her for joining us.
Thank you very much for providing me a floor. It's a huge honor for me to address to this distinguished audience. I would like to focus in my remarks on several things. And first is what this war is about. Because this is not a war just about territories. First and foremost, this is a war about freedom in all senses. A freedom to be an independent country, but not Russian colony, a freedom to have our own democratic choice, and a freedom to preserve Ukrainian identity and not to be forced to educate Ukrainian children as Russians. And in this point, this war has a genocidal character. Putin openly says there is no Ukrainian nation, there is no Ukrainian language, there is no Ukrainian culture. For 11 years, we have been documenting how these words converted in horrible practice. When Russian troops physically exterminate active local people on the ground, mayors, journalists, children writers, musicians, teachers, priests, environmentalists, how they ban Ukrainian language and culture, how they robbed and destroyed Ukrainian cultural heritage. And when they take Ukrainian children to Russia, they put them in Russian education camps. They told them they're not Ukrainian, they're Russian children, and their families, their parents refused from them, and they will be adopted by Russian families who will bring them up as Russians. As a lawyer, I know that genocide is a crime of crimes. It's very difficult to prove it, but there is no necessity to be a lawyer to understand a very common thing. If you want, partially or completely, to destroy some national group, there is no necessity to kill all representatives. You can just forcibly change their identity, and entire national group, sooner or later, will disappear. Second thing which I want to focus in my speech, it's about truth as a first victim of the war. I know that people start to understand that the war is going on only when bombs fall into their heads. But war has not just military, but also informational dimension. This is a battle for hearts and minds of people, and this battle has no limitation in national borders. Because the way how people see the world define their decision and actions, and that is why Russia attacked the truth. Russia invests heavily in its informational infrastructure, including Russian channels that broadcast in different languages, the troll factory, and thousands of bloggers catering to different taste and audience. Russia is trying hard to destroy our connection with reality. Russia refers to the war as a special military operation, justify attack on residential buildings, schools, hospitals, churches, and playground as protection of Russian-speaking people, and portrays the abduction of Ukrainian children and their trafficking to Russia as their rescue. I see it even in my human rights work. I interviewed a young woman from Donetsk. She was illegally abducted and severely tortured because she has pro-Ukrainian sympathy, which is normal for citizens of the country to have a sympathy to their country. So she told me that she begged not to beat her because she was pregnant. But she got an answer that you have pro-Ukrainian views, and that is why your child has no right to be born. But then later, the perpetrators changed their mind and told her, we will release you if you will say to Russian journalists that you are a sniper. For sure, she agreed. She can say that she is Batman. So she told this artificial story that she is a sniper to Russian journalists. And one detail struck me. When this Russian journalist arrived, they had no surprise with the whole situation. The only thing which they asked her to do, to sit in a pose to hide her pregnancy, because it's ruined the whole plot. And that is why we, as a human rights lawyer, built a national network of local documentators. We covered the whole country, including the occupied territories. We have an ambitious goal to document every criminal episode which was committed in the smallest village. We have in our database more than 88,000 episodes of war crimes. And this is already the most documented war in the human history. Third, I would like to tell about justice, because we provide this documentation for justice, not just for national archives. And justice is precondition to sustainable peace. All this hell which we face in Ukraine is a result of total impunity which Russia enjoyed for decades. Russian troops committed horrible crimes in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Mali, in Libya, in Syria, in other countries of the world. They have never been punished. They believe they can do whatever they want. We must break the circle of impunity. We must demonstrate justice. And last thing which I want to focus on, it's our historical responsibility. I, as a human rights lawyer, now found myself in a situation when the law doesn't work. I know pretty well the UN system, Council of Europe, OSCE, legal mechanisms, but I have no tools how to stop Russian atrocities. So I invest a lot of efforts to international advocacy, to meet with presidents of different countries, members of parliaments, members of governments, to convene them to help us to achieve justice. And what I see that all these people who take political decisions, at least majority of them, still look to the world through the lens of the Nuremberg trial. But Nuremberg trial, it was victorious trial. It was trial where Nazi war criminals were tried only after Nazi regime had collapsed. And past century, it was a very essential step to establish law and justice. But it also set this ethical standard that justice is privileged to winners. I would like to remind all of us that we live in a new century. We must move further. Justice is not privilege. Justice is the basic human rights. And a lot of things changed rapidly after the Second World War, after the Nuremberg trial. And that is why our historical responsibility to make justice independent on the fact when and how the war will end. This means that we cannot wait. We must establish all legal procedures now to hold Putin, top political leadership and high military command of the Russian state accountable. And I know, being a lawyer, that international crimes has no statute of limitation. It means that even if today we have no geopolitical situation to hold them accountable, tomorrow, when the window of opportunity will open, we will do it. And we have to get everything ready for this window of opportunity. And that is why, to end in the positive note, I would like to remind that just a month ago, Council of Europe established a very important historical decision, which is revolutionary, because Council of Europe announced the creation of special tribunal on aggression to hold Putin and his surrounding accountable for the crime against peace. And all atrocities, all these 88,000 episodes, which me and my colleagues were documented, it's a result of the leadership decision to break the peace and to start the war. And we're just on the beginning on this path, the path which lead us to justice, but the first step has already taken. And I know, working with people affected by this war directly, that people who went through hell, they need to restore not just their broken life, broken families, broken vision of the future, but their broken belief that justice is possible, even though delayed in time. Thank you very much.